a favorite from the Shrek franchise, returns with his second spin-off movie. Let's talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new animated film Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This is in theaters right now, and I think it's going to be a big hit for the holiday season for the kiddos out there. This is the first Shrek movie we've had in a long time. The last Puss in Boots was 2011, and I think that was the most recent one. We had the first 4 Shrek movies within about a decade, and then 2011 was Puss in Boots with the spinoff. And now finally we've got The Last Wish. However, if the ending of this movie is any indication, not going to do any spoilers, but they're definitely nodding to the fact that there could be a 5th Shrek movie coming up. And I know that's sort of been bandied about for the last couple of years anyway, so I would say that the end of this movie more or less confirms that that is indeed happening. But in any event, before we start tackling this movie in specifics, I want to welcome you to Dan Reviews It. Thanks for finding this video. Lots of great movie and TV stuff for you to check out on the channel, and please consider subscribing down below. Would love to have you aboard in that regard. So this is one of my favorite characters, in recent animation. I am a cat person, so for me, Puss in Boots just has always hit the mark. It's why I think Shrek 2 is the best of the entire franchise, because it introduces us to Puss in Boots. The first Puss in Boots movie, I have to say, I don't really remember too well, but I remember liking it enough. I probably gave it somewhere in like a B or a B- type of range. So the basic plot here is that Puss, after a great adventure at the beginning of the film, dies for what we realize is the 8th time. So he is now on his final of his 9 lives. And we sort of saw that in the trailer. And in the movie, they actually go through each one specifically. And there's, a little bit of a humorous montage there. But as a result, he sets off to find this mythical last wish for the wishing star, and hopes to gain his 9 lives back, but at the time he also has to escape some new enemies, and is helped with friends both old and new. So the voice work here, well, of course we have Antonio Banderas returning for Puss in Boots. I don't think it would be right to do it without him. But Salma Hayek returns as well as Kitty Softpaws, but we have some new people as well, including Harvey Guillén as Perito, who is a therapy dog who is pretending to be a cat so he can live in this sort of crazy cat lady's house. But you also have Florence Pugh as Goldilocks, Olivia Colman as Mama Bear, John Mulaney as Big Jack Horner, so little Jack Horner has now grown up, and a few other people as well. And this is, look, part of the reason I love the Puss in Boots character so much is because I do think, yes, he's written very funny, and, the design of the character is cool. But for my money, Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots is one of the great, vocal performances in an animated film. I mean, I really think he's right up there with some of the big names in, the Pixar universe. He owns this character. And it's so great to see him on screen again. And Salma Hayek also, does a good job as Kitty Softpaws. Everybody else, I think they did good work in the role, but I couldn't necessarily pick them out. I did think for a second about Olivia Colman, but she was just in the animated Scrooge movie on Netflix that I hated. And she does do a lot of voice work, so I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that it was her. But it was, lovely to see her again, but I didn't necessarily recognize it. John Mulaney, I actually thought was Zach Braff most of the movie. In fact, the whole movie, I should say, because they both have that similar sort of, vocal pattern and intonation in their voice. So I was thinking it was Zach Braff, and then the credits rolled. Turns out it was Mulaney, which, made sense as well. But really, the star here, both vocally and with everything else, is Antonio Banderas. He's so great as Puss in Boots. I think the first movie did this as well, and I can't be sure. I would have to go back and look. But the animation here is all right. It's not up to the level of, Pixar or a Disney movie, but it's certainly in the wheelhouse of the DreamWorks repertoire. Other than like How to Train Your Dragon, which was superior in animation wise. This is akin to like a Kung Fu Panda, Boss Baby, Trolls. None of it is like outstanding, but it's very, very well done and competent enough. The character designs are fun, all of that sort of stuff. But I don't think they tend to keep things as realistic as your Pixar movies. I think it's definitely more cartoonish in certainly the Shrek universe, but I think in DreamWorks in general. And I guess part of that is, a lot of the main characters are not people. In Pixar you've got, Inside Out and Onward and Turning Red, they're all people. Here it's just, creatures and sort of that thing. But I guess the townspeople are people, but in any event, but there's this sort of weird thing whenever there's a big action sequence, it reverts to this, I'm not sure what you would even call it, but just a more sort of understated or prehistoric, really, maybe animation style, and it's almost sort of like stop motion in a way. And remembering it, I think they did that in the first Puss in Boots movie as well. Here, I think they've amped it up a little bit. I have mixed feelings about that sort of trope because I think in one part it does look a little bit different from other animated movies, and in fact, it looks a little bit different from the rest of this animated movie when they go into that mode. But I also don't think it looks all that great. I think it looks a little bit, more sophomoric. So I have mixed feelings about the effects of doing it that way. I think it's maybe a little bit lazy in some parts, but it is something more to look at that we maybe don't see in the other things. But look, this is keeping in line with all of the Shrek lore with the fairy tales, because you've got Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you've got Jack Horner. There's a few other things, like Jack Horner literally has a Mary Poppins style bag that he could just reach in and grab random things from different fairy tales. So you've got the Eat Me and Drink Me thing from Alice in Wonderland. You've got a version of Jiminy Cricket from the Pinocchio tale. And of course, Pinocchio was, one of the characters in the Shrek movies. But this is also very funny. I laughed a lot in this movie, and there's some good adventure here. So I think the good parts about this movie outweigh some of the more questionable ones. I do think it's a little bit of an upgrade from most of the recent DreamWorks movies. That second Boss Baby was not very good. The second Trolls was even worse. But this one, I think, hits a really sweet spot because it's a little bit nostalgic, but because it's not the whole Shrek universe, it's just the Puss in Boots character. It's not like you're ever wondering, like, where is Shrek and Fiona? What are they up to? This is definitely sort of a standalone story. I don't think you even have to see the first Puss in Boots or probably any of the other Shrek movies. I think this does act kind of as a standalone movie, and I certainly liked that aspect of it too. So overall, I think this is a fun movie. It's certainly got more sort of bloodiness and really combat type of action than we usually see in animated movies. A movie like Strange World that just got released by Disney, yeah, there's definitely some action sequences there, but this is like straight up swashbuckling and hand-to-hand combat, and they're actually fighting, and we see bloodshed and we see death. So it is a little bit maybe more mature in that regard. But overall, I liked this movie. I think this really lies right in that sweet spot of the first movie, which again, I forget my exact grade for that. I would have to look, but I leave Puss in Boots: The Last Wish with a B. All right, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.